Are you neurodivergent? Do you oftentimes find you seem to feel more tired than everyone else around you and you wonder why? You might be surprised to know that this isn't just due to the amount of sleep you're getting. Stay tuned to find out more. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, Neurodivergent. A huge welcome to all of my newest subscribers that found me through my interview with Orion Kelly, that autistic guy. In the off chance you haven't seen that interview yet, I'll link to it in the description box of this video, and I just wanted to say thank you again to Orion for having me on. So, let's get into this. If you're anything like me, around 3 p.m. you oftentimes hit a wall and find yourself exhausted. Sometimes it doesn't even wait until 3 p.m. and you're just some form of exhausted pigeon all day. While there can be a lot of factors that play into why we suddenly get tired, sometimes it doesn't even seem to matter how much sleep you get or how healthy you're eating. Well, the good news is you're not crazy. Autistic and ADHD fatigue are both very real things that are part and parcel to our brain types. And this exhaustion can stem from a whole host of things: sensory overload, anxiety, masking, major life changes or changes in routine, expectations and pressure, prolonged social interactions, taking on more than our executive functioning can handle, or fighting with that itchy tag on the back of your sweater for way too long before finally deciding to cut it off. But today I want to delve into one of the causes of fatigue that I personally find to be one of the big contributors to this, and that is the increased mental load we all bear thanks to our brain wiring. I guess you could say it's all in our heads, and it's exhausting. I first saw the concept of mental load explained with a cartoon by French cartoon artist Emma called You Should Have Asked, which I'll link in the description box below. The message it sent was so relatable that I've referenced it in conversations more times than I care to admit. Now, this cartoon focuses more on the mental load females carry around regarding all the tiny details it takes them to run their lives and their household. But I'm not trying to make this about gender or running a household. What I want to talk about is how this cartoon goes on to describe the term mental load. Because while in the neurotypical world this might be more inherent to women, according to a myriad of studies, when it comes to having an autistic or ADHD brain, this concept pretty much applies to all of us. So what is the mental load exactly? Mental load can be thought of as cognitive labor, but you can't see it on the outside. This invisible labor is like carrying a major weight around in your head, and it leads to overwhelming exhaustion. Emma illustrates an example of this, where a woman goes to do a simple chore like clearing a coffee table. She starts by picking something up to put it away, but then on the way back she comes across a dirty towel that needs to go in the laundry basket, which she then finds full, so she goes to the washing machine. Then on top of the washing machine she sees the vegetables that she needs to put in the fridge, so she goes to put the vegetables away and she realized that she needs to add mustard to her shopping list. 2 hours later she's finally cleared the stuff off of the table, and to an outsider one might wonder what she did with her time because it doesn't seem like much was done. And I think this does a good job of representing the cognitive load we all face, which is not reflective of the task itself. Both autistics and people with ADHD have a higher mental load on a consistent basis. Autistics tend to hone in on and perseverate on small details, while ADHDers tend to absorb a frightening amount of irrelevant details, coupled with mental hyperactivity and overload. If thoughts carried weight, our brains would be 10 times heavier. On the outside, people might wonder why such seemingly simple tasks can cause us so much overwhelm, stress, and fatigue, because they don't see the mental processes we're suffering through. The mental load we carry is intangible but taxing. So the resulting exhaustion, procrastination, or overwhelm is not well understood by those around us. Each task or thought looks bigger through our lenses and requires more effort from us than it does for others because it immediately spirals into a million different possibilities, details, and additional tasks. One way to represent this concept is in thinking about how a tree is structured. It starts with a trunk, which represents a single task or idea. Then all of a sudden you have a bunch of branches, which are related topics. Then those related topics suddenly sprout thousands of twigs with individual things that relate to those branches. And somehow it's all happening simultaneously, all at once inside of our heads. And it's constant. It happens everywhere with everything in every moment of our lives. I mean, I can't even open my cupboards without having an onslaught of conditional flowchart-like thoughts flooding into my brain and attempting to drown me. A neurotypical person would open my cupboards and just see dishes, but I see a set of dishes that doesn't all match, which bothers me. I often think I'd like to buy a matching set, but then I don't want to spend valuable monetary resources to accomplish this when technically the dishes we have work just fine, which leads me to thinking about other areas of finances and bills. And at the same time, I'm also thinking about how there are other items and appliances in my kitchen that I should get rid of, which makes me think I should have a garage sale, but then I'd have to go through the entire house. And where would I store these things in the meantime? And if I did get new dishes, what would they look like? Because that would be a huge commitment. And depending on what I got, I might have to rearrange my cupboards. But I don't know if I'm ready for that kind of change either. It's like if you gave a mouse a cookie, but if that cookie was topped with sprinkles of
drugs.
This is awkward. No, thank you.
Drugs.
Or have you ever tried to plan a vacation? Holy crap, the amount of overthinking, the billions of combination possibilities for flights and hotels, activities, transportation, clothing, dining. This is making me real tired, y'all. I'm gonna go take a nap. I'll be right back. I actually got the idea to do this video last month when my husband and I were putting Halloween decorations away. To a neurotypical person, putting away holiday decorations means taking them down and putting them in a box. But to me, it immediately felt like a Herculean task with a bunch of complicated components that took a lot out of me. Why? Well, you just sit right there and I'll tell you, my little captive audience. Because I have to go through the string of lights to make sure they're all still working before I put them in their boxes. The various costumes we've collected throughout the years are scattered throughout the tote, so I should probably go through all the costumes, refold them, and try to find bags to put them all in. This makes me think I should go online to purchase bags for this purpose, but then again, that's spending money, and I'd have to leave these totes out while I waited for them to get here. Another big decision. I start going through the wigs and find one of them needs to be brushed out, so that takes me 15 minutes to do. And let's not even get into the question of how I organize the totes between the costumes and the decorations. So after a few grueling hours, I finally get the Halloween decorations put away, and I feel exhausted and frustrated. And again, why? All I did was put away Halloween decorations. It was just a matter of putting things in totes. So it couldn't have been that difficult.
Actually, that was quite difficult.
But it's not about the task. It's about the mental load I suffered, taking in all the details, feeling the need to make miniature decisions on so many things. The out-of-control thought spiral it creates with additional to-do items, the second-guessing myself, and the overwhelm of it all. Another way to picture this is like looking at life through a different lens. I recently saw this TikTok that did an excellent job of showing what life looks like with different vision impairments. As someone who at one time had about a -8 prescription before getting LASIK, I can personally vouch for how good of a job it did representing this. But in this example, the way a neurotypical person sees simple objects or tasks is straightforward, which is like that 20/20 vision we see in the beginning. But the way a neurodivergent person sees those exact same things looks very different. They look big and scary with millions of details and tons of different possibilities. They add more to-do items into our mental registry and add to our sense of incompleteness and self-depreciation. Everything is fuzzy and almost nothing looks clear or straightforward to us. You can call it overthinking, but to me it's just thinking because this is how my brain is wired. However, I'm not ignorant to the fact that other people don't struggle with this, and it does negatively impact my life. As June Silney from Attitude magazine describes it, it's like carrying an invisible 50-pound load on our backs. The mind is a resource that can be overworked just like any other part of our body. So, while exhaustion is an easily recognizable side effect of physical exertion, we often forget that mental exertion and overload can have the exact same result. And this thought tree of overwhelming possibilities and details applies to just about everything in our lives. Like masking, for example. Masking is our attempt to camouflage our differences so we can blend in more with society. We do it in order to adapt to the world around us. It can look like forcing oneself to smile, even though they normally have a flat affect, observing and mimicking the behaviors of others, trying to add fluctuations to their tone of voice that doesn't come naturally, forcing themselves to make eye contact, and constantly trying to strategize the next step of conversational output. It adds an additional layer of responsibility that makes us overthink the way we walk, the way we talk, the way we stand, or even how often we're blinking, which means our brains have to work extra hard. And if you think about it, some people actually get paid a lot of money for this level of acting because it's work. Acting is an actual paid job for some people, and we're all out here doing it free of charge. So, hey Hollywood, call me. In essence, social interactions oftentimes have us in a heightened stage of fight or flight, which releases hormones like adrenaline, norepinephrine, and cortisol. And the effect of social activities is not limited to just the event itself. No, it starts with the anticipation prior to and the remuneration afterward of not feeling like we met social expectations despite our best efforts. Navigating social situations is a notorious spoon thief. How we perceive we fit into the world mixed with the societal pressures placed upon us is a heavy burden to bear that crushes many of us. And all of this is a cyclical occurrence of stress that results in real-life consequences that are not only emotional and psychological, but can also result in physical pain, headaches, or, you guessed it, fatigue. Hyperfocus is another big one for many of us. It can cause us to get so engrossed in a project that we forget to eat proper meals or take breaks, which is obviously going to cause us to lose energy. Now, I'm not admitting to ever having been hangry before after a hyperfocus episode, but my husband may or may not have PTSD from the sudden onset of irritability and irrationality when such alleged episodes have occurred. Allegedly. We also tend to overextend ourselves because we don't know how to say no as a coping strategy to fit in with society. And for those with ADHD who also have the hyperactivity component, well, need I say more? I mean, just think about what hyperactivity is. As an adult, that can look like taking on too many projects, jumping from one thing to the next, or constantly moving parts of our body, like shaking our legs and hands while sitting down, if you're even able to sit down. Oftentimes, we do have to work twice as hard as the general population to accomplish what most would consider easy, like interacting with other human beings or completing a simple task. We absorb every minute detail about the world around us, and it takes a ton of effort just to function. And in case I've not yet convinced a jury of my peers about how exhausting it is to have autism or ADHD, let's discuss how anxiety plays a role in our lives. Exhibit A, Your Honor. Research shows that about half of autistic people experience high levels of anxiety. Now, anxiety is not one of the diagnostic criteria for either condition, but it is often a result of all the things we experience because of autism or ADHD. We can face a ton of stress from social situations, sensory environments, constantly feeling misunderstood, and not fitting in. And in ADHD, it comes from executive functioning difficulties, bad outcomes related to impulsiveness, perfectionism and procrastination, and so on. And prolonged anxiety can lead to a whole host of issues like headaches, irritability, increased blood pressure, muscle aches, upset stomach, loss of libido, and
Wait for it.
extreme fatigue. Now, coping with things for too long is what leads many on the spectrum to have meltdowns, shutdowns, or burnouts. Now, sleep obviously plays a role in fatigue too, and is something neurodivergents struggle with as well. Because, of course, it is. It has been clearly evidenced that people on the spectrum have more difficulty with sleeping. According to an article in Spectrum News, many people with autism have other conditions such as gastrointestinal problems, ADHD, or anxiety, and each of these is known to disrupt sleep. Sensory sensitivities to light, sound, or touch may contribute to difficulties sleeping. Sleep problems may also be an indicator of depression in autistic people, although whether it is a cause or a result of sleep difficulties is unclear. And in some cases, people on the spectrum carry mutations that make them prone to sleep problems. Studies suggest that individuals with autism are more likely than typical people to have mutations in genes that govern the sleep-wake cycle, or those that have links to insomnia. Some studies suggest that people on the spectrum carry mutations that affect levels of melatonin, which is a natural hormone that controls sleep. And a lot of the research on sleep difficulties in ADHD was pretty fascinating as well. An article in sleepfoundation.org had this to say about it. ADHD-related sleep problems may be a side effect of impaired arousal, alertness, and regulation circuits in the brain. Other researchers believe that ADHD-related sleep problems can be traced to a delayed circadian rhythm with a later onset of melatonin production. It even goes on to say that sleep problems in ADHD may differ depending on the type of ADHD. Individuals with predominantly inattentive symptoms are more likely to have a later bedtime, while those with predominantly hyperactive, impulsive symptoms are more likely to suffer from insomnia. Those with combined type experience both poor sleep quality and a later bedtime, which would explain why I've been a night owl my whole life. And even when I do finally lay down, it can feel like an impossible task to shut off my brain. I'll start thinking about all the things I didn't get done that day, video topic ideas, or if I was going to hypothetically put together a surprise award show, how I would manage the logistics of invitations and seating arrangements, because, hypothetically, these things that will never in a million years happen deserve my brain's attention at 1 o'clock in the morning. Now, much like I wasn't trying to focus on the gender battle aspect of the mental overload I mentioned in the beginning of my video, I'm not trying to make this a neurodivergent versus neurotypical battle of who's got it harder. This isn't a contest. We all face battles in daily life as a part of the human condition, and no one's journey is easy. My point in sharing all of this was to hopefully communicate a meaningful message to both neurotypicals and neurodivergents. If you're a neurodivergent, I want you to know that if you find yourself constantly battling exhaustion, it's not all in your head. I mean, it is, but not because you're making it up. It's because your brain takes in more details and carries a heavier mental load that causes overwhelm and fatigue about almost everything in your life. And if you're a neurotypical listening to this message, I'm asking you to be patient with the neurodivergent person in your life because they're fighting a battle you don't see. The hidden cost of the mental processes we endure is substantial, and it isn't measured in product output. It might be tempting to dismiss our exhaustion over seemingly simple tasks because the internal emotional labor isn't visible on the outside. But please know that constantly being overwhelmed by our environment, socializing, and overthinking is a pain you can't truly understand unless you've experienced it. And once again, I'm not intending that to be used as an excuse for bad behavior. As neurodivergents, we all have different strengths and limitations, but we should all be doing our best within those strengths and limitations. What I am intending to come out of this message is that more grace, compassion, and understanding is appropriate for us to give ourselves and for the outside world to have a better understanding of all of this. Now, there are a ton of strategies we can put in place to lessen our exhaustion and help us feel better. However, I didn't have a way to fit them into this video without making it an hour-long saga, but if that's something y'all would be interested in hearing, let me know, and maybe I'll do a video on that in the future. But even with strategies in place, it's not going to change the fundamentals of our brain wiring or the uphill battle we face with all of this. While there are things we can do to improve our daily lives, the consistent nature of this mental load just means we have extra hurdles in place. So it pays to be kind. So I'll wrap it up there. If you have stories about how having a heavier mental load has played a role in your life, I'd love to hear from you. That is, if you have the energy.
Oh, let's go, let's go, let's go!
Also, here's your reminder to go drink some water, eat something healthy, and take a walk, or at least get your body moving. And if no one has told you this yet today, you are awesome. Other than that, hopefully I'll see you in my next video. Until then, bye for now. Mwah! Exhibit A, Your Honor.